paddy works on the railway. In 1842 from Hartlepool I moved to Crewe, found myself a job to do, working on the railway.
Hiya. Many years ago, when I had my previous lathe, which was a Myford Maestro, I had a Patriot chuck. It's the Robert Sorby Nova chuck compatible chuck. And I've got to say, it was a beautiful piece of engineering. However, when I bought this lathe, the spindle didn't fit. The person I was selling the lathe to wanted the chuck, so I sold the chuck with the lathe. Consequently, this wobble chuck has been sat in the back of a cupboard unused. I'll show you for why in a minute. It fits the 2-inch jewels on a Patriot chuck perfectly, and it's designed for it. The 2-inch record power or Nova chuck will also fit it perfectly. Now in the box you get a little leaflet, usual health and safety stuff, little explanation about what the wobble chuck does. I will show you that anyway, and how to put it into the Patriot chuck. It fits perfectly into that, as I said. Also tells you that you can take this center screw out and use the 3 screws in the faceplate as an alternative method of fastening your work to the chuck. What's a wobble chuck, you may ask? Well, this is a wobble chuck. It's got a cam. It's got a central mark and a couple of grub screws, which you just loosen off, and then you can turn it on the cam, which doesn't show on that camera. Switch to overhead a sec. Right, so go back to square. So you can turn it on the cam, and as you can see, that screw gets more and more off center, then comes back to itself as you line up the slot again. And I had a lot of fun with this when I first got it, when I was using the old chuck, but because it doesn't fit the Axminster chucks particularly well, I stopped using it, and it found its way to the back of the cupboard. By the way, because this is a bad fit, and one thing or another, I will definitely be wearing my face shield today. Let's put it down there for a sec. The problem I've got is I put it into the only Axminster jewels I got that fit it properly, don't fit it properly, because there's about a mil gap here. Mostly with this camera view, so you get to see what I do on the end, what I do on the top. This is just rough shape. This is just to give me an idea where I'm going. And normally I would just go in with a spindle gouge and back hollow, but I'm 9 inches plus 1.5 inches, 3/4 away from the chuck, so I'm a long way off the chuck, and I do have that slight issue with the chuck not being perfect. So I want to figure out where I'm going to go with this. Don't want to go any deeper than that, which is actually just shy of the shoulder on the forstner bit shaft. The old way of hollowing out was use a spindle gouge where you drill it in a little bit and then you pull it back out and round and you back hollow the piece out. I said I'm not doing that purely because of the requirement to be nice and gentle, but also because we now don't have to. We have other options. And the option I'm going to go with is the Simon Hope 8mm square bar hollowing tool. So that requires my tool rest to be a little bit further out because it's tapered on the end here. So you don't want to be I think you can see there's quite a bit of movement in there. And that vibration is obviously going to give me a pretty poor cut on the inside. So I'm going to go to a smaller cutter. Try and improve that before I start the sanding. Still Simon Hope, but this time the 6mm cutter on the round bar. Moderately happy with that. And one thing that this method does cause is there's a flat bottom because of the forstner bit. This will not cut into the bottom. So we are back to the old method of that. Just to round out the bottom of this. So we're back to the spindle gouge. Just double check the height of that. It's a slightly thinner bar than the other tool, so I need to come up a little bit. Okay, so I'm not going to go far with this. I'm just going to round the bottom out. So I use it as a drill, and that just gives me a curved base as opposed to the flat forstner bit base. Right, I'll pause you while I sand that because that's boring. This bit's important. Go back to that. Go back to that view, you don't need to see me. Everything I want to do inside this cup, I've got to do now. I cannot come back to it. Once I've done the next stage and come down here and made this thin, I cannot finish this anymore. So it's fully sanded now. You didn't need to watch that. Well, you couldn't watch it anyway. Fully sanded, so I'm going to put my maple syrup on it, and that's actually cellular sanding sealer, and I'm then going to use True Grip and Hampshire Sheen. That's the inside. Then I cut this a bit further, get my outside cut finished. Then I'll repeat that process on those. Because once I get into the stem, that's it. I cannot come back here ever again. So it's got to be done to my satisfaction. So on we go. I have to confess that due to that vibration, I did have to do a fair bit with 80 grit before I could actually get anywhere near a finish inside there. What camera are we on? I don't know. We're upside down. Bit of abrasive paste. This stuff, it takes it from around about 320 it starts at. So you sand to 240, then this takes over, and it breaks down until you get to somewhere around the 1000 grit mark. If you were comparing it to ordinary sanding. But the nice thing is, because it's a paste, there's no dust. All the dust is caught in the wax. It's no secret, there's beeswax, mineral oil, and a grit that breaks down. I don't know what the grit is, but other people do. I don't. Pumice is used, I think, in some. Don't want too much speed at this stage. Just work it down. Especially inside there where you can't see what you're doing. Be careful your fingernails don't touch. They will mark the wood. That's especially across the bottom. Because there is a tendency to use the end of your fingers. And even the end of your fingers will apply more pressure than the pad of your finger. So keep it in mind. When it's done its work, you can turn the speed up and just polish it off and get that wax and any remaining bits of grit off the wood. So the pad comes out clean and you're ready for some wax. You use other finishes, but this is my favourite because it's easy to use. It does a good job. Sometimes I might overcoat this with the pure microcrystalline, but this is a blend of carnauba and microcrystalline, so it's got some in there already. When it's a blended wax, I tend to think of them as cocktails. So if you've got a melting point of, well, like beeswax is 60 degree, carnauba is 80 degree, and if you blend the two, then I reckon you probably get around about a 70 degree melting point. The melting point isn't the danger point, really. The danger point is the tacky point, when dust will stick to your piece, or fingerprints will make a dent in the wax. And again, careful with your fingernails. You're not trying to take the wax off, you're just trying to buff it. Which does involve melting it a little bit. But if you do too much, all you do is take it off again, which you don't want. Next step is to pause you while I rearrange stuff, because you don't want to watch that. Okay, we're back with a slightly moved camera. Going to work on the back end of the goblet now, the outside of the goblet. Going to do that at just under 1000 RPM. I like to work backwards with about a 45 degree angle. And I like to just finish this off with a skew, which I'm going to very gently introduce on the bevel and then just lift into the cut. Then rolling my body, I just move the skew around. Okay, so guess what? Now we're sanding. So I'll put you on pause because you don't want to watch that. Okay, sanding done, same regime as before. Bit of sanding sealer. What I'm going to use on this one is some embellishing paste wax from a Hampshire Sheen And I'm using the black one today. And we finish off with a shiny protective coat of Hampshire Sheen High Gloss. I'm sure you've all seen enough videos of this stuff being used to know. Put it on sparingly. Multiple coats is better than a thick coat. And 3 coats gives you the best shine. I might do 3 coats, but I'm not going to film 3 coats. Okay, cup is done, polished, finished, complete. I will not be touching that again whilst making this goblet. It's finished. Still on centre, still haven't gone off centre yet. This is bigger than I want it to be, so I'm going to take this down not far, quarter of an inch or so off of it. So I've got these 2 grub screws. Loosen them both and turn it in that direction. A trial amount. We can adjust as we go. One way of seeing how far you've gone off centre is to bring your tailstock back up with your cone in there. You can't see that. Hang on. So you bring your tailstock back up with your cone in and just see how far off centre you are. And that's pretty good. To the same place. We want this equal distance the other side rather. Put some calipers in those grooves. Set the calipers, and if I do that the other way around, when I do the next section, then it'll be the same. ridge which needs to be lost, and the easiest way is to sand it off. I'm going to stick you on pause while I take care of that. We sand it with the lathe stopped to get rid of that ridge, and then we'll use the lathe to smooth out the final bit. That's the sanding done of this bit. Finishing regime is going to be exactly the same as for the cup. Sanding sealer, true grit. I'm going to use the black, I'm not going to use the gold embellishing wax. And then hamster machine wax over the top. I'm not going to film it because, you know, there's not much point really. It's going to be the same again. But you can only do this bit. In theory, because I got the calipers set, I could come back to the same point again. But that's just in theory. In reality, you're not getting back here. So do it now. The next section. So now I'm going to just reverse my off center. I'm going to use my calipers to get it in pretty much the same way the other way around. Just to note, I have taken the cone out of my tailstock end, so that is free to move, otherwise I'd be in difficulties. It's a little bit more there, I think. And you'll notice I'm extensively using my variable speed here. To start and stop the lathe without sudden shocks or anything. So my spacings are roughly one finger at the top, two fingers in the middle, one finger at the bottom. Even though I'm back on centre, I'm still changing the speed to start and stop the lathe rather than just hitting it on off. Go for a smaller spindle gauge just for that middle bit. Okay, so my base of my goblet, that's too big at the moment. Just take that down a little bit. I put it from the end of the lathe and see if I approve. A little fraction more. So that's where I want my base to be. I want that surface just slightly concave. Yep, I'm liking that. Soften that edge. Just use the parsing tool there to give me space that I can sand into, so that my start of my base is consistent with the rest of the sanding. So we're back to sanding again. At least on these bits I'm only having to use the 120 upwards. I'm not having to use the 80 grit like I did inside the cup. But because it's all in small segments, there's a lot of sanding. Right, you're back on pause. Okay, we're pretty much done. Just got to get off the lathe now. Note, tailstock's removed because I'm parting off. I do not want any pressure back towards the headstock while I'm parting off. I'll bring the speed up gently. Obviously I can't catch it here, so I've got to be in here to catch it. Obviously you could finish that off with a saw if you needed to. So we have a very wonky, or in fact, as it's called, robertsorby wobbly chuck. Wobble chuck, not wobbly. Yeah, just double checking. Robertsorby wobble chuck. Weirdly arranged goblet. Rather fun. Because you've got to do each section, there's an awful lot of polishing time involved. So, just got to get that sanded off and burn it. No, not that sort. Burn it with a laser.